How's it going, everyone? I know it's been a long time since my last video, but I want to make sure we got back on track with this, and I figured we'd come strong with a pretty crazy topic: supervisors. I know what you're thinking. Supervisors. Who really likes supervisors? But by the end of this video, I'm hoping that we can understand why you love some of them, why you hate a lot of them, and what we can do together to make sure that supervisors get the love that they deserve.
Welcome to Leadership Briefings, brought to you by Spectrum Organizational Development, bringing you the latest in leadership, human resources, and business news. Today's topic: maximizing supervisor effectiveness.
I know, it sounds like a joke, but supervisors at the end of the day are the most important aspect of making sure your business moves from point A to point B. You can have all the strategy in the world, you can have all the management process in place, but it's that relationship between the frontline supervisor or team leader, or however your organization refers to them, and the actual individual contributors in your organization that make sure that your organization has the results it needs. So when we talk about supervisors today, we're going to talk across two axes. One of them is their likability. So we use kind of that Tim Sanders, the likability factor model, and realize there are kind of four aspects to likability. Like there's their friendliness. Are they friendly? Are they good people in that respect? Are they relevant? Do they know who you are? Do they kind of connect well with you? Do they have empathy? Do they have that ability to kind of understand if you're having a bad day and you need a bit more emotional support? Can they do that for you? And lastly, their realness. Are they somebody who is authentic? Are they somebody that you can really kind of form a bond with and really understand what it means to be a strong individual contributor, and make sure you're realizing your potential every single day? The other axis is their functional skill and understanding. Does your supervisor understand project management? Do they understand their ability to manage talent and see you not just as somebody who moves the operation in your own little workspace forward every day, but do they understand kind of that you are somebody that needs to be managed more effectively? And lastly, there is their operational acumen. Do they understand where they work? Do they really love what they do every single day, and are they going to be somebody that understands the business? Are they deep in the business, and can they be effective with you? So we're going to talk about those two axes today and profile four different but types of supervisors, if you will. So the first of the four we're going to talk about today is what I'm going to call the super friend, and this is the supervisor that occurs in a lot of organizations. Very strong likability. People really rally around them. The problem is they don't quite have the functional skill set that is required to be a truly effective people leader. So that's why I call them the super friend. They're good people. They have good morals. They have good ethics, whatever the case may be. But they really lack that functional skill, and they're just kind of floating day to day without really understanding. They have an ability to progress themselves and progress, you as an individual contributor or the business itself going forward. So this is the kind of that classic case of promotion of kind of your best operator. This is somebody that did their job really, really well, and you as a manager thought, gosh, I'm going to move this person up and make them a supervisor, make them a team leader, and at the end of the day, we didn't prepare them for that. We didn't give them the training they needed. So that skill gap is very much functional, and what I recommend organizations do to kind of take that super friend, which is a really hard skill to train in inherently, is to give them functional skill training around things like those, where those management 101 training programs come in, where it focuses on like those functional skills, particularly project management. Project management, I think, is kind of the easiest, and all my PMP designation people are going to freak out at this, but the fact of the matter is that project management is a pretty simple skill set to teach somebody at a very high level. Understanding a critical path, understanding what needs to be done at each stage of a project in order to make sure they're effective. So focusing on that. And performance management, that's another one where we're giving them the coaching skill sets they need, understanding that identifying gaps in individual contributor performance is going to be very important. So those are some key ones there. And as a manager, the number one thing you can do to support them is help them have those tough conversations, because they're used to being liked, they're used to being the positive person that people really rallied behind, but they might not have the ability to have those real really tough coaching conversations, those performance conversations where they have to talk with their individual contributors and say, listen, you're not doing the job the way it needs to be done, and here's what we need to do to make sure you can do it more effectively. And in some cases that means letting people go, and these are people that tend to hold on to their employees a little too long and ends up hurting the organization overall. So that super friend is great to have, but again, there has to be a focus on pushing them further along that functional skill set to be more effective for your organization. The next of the four is going to be that classic term, the supervisor. This is, I've always hated the term just by what it sounds like, supervising. You're not doing anything, you're watching, you're not connecting. And so I've always hated when organizations really use that term, and no offense to any organizations out there, but if you give someone a title, they tend to live to that title. So I want to make sure that when you're using that term supervisor, you understand some of the limitations that puts on to your staff in that position. These are your highly technical people. They understand the more functional skill set aspects of the job, but they're far more detached from their employees. So they're focused on the process, not on the people. So they're good to have from an operational standpoint. They sound like the right people to have, but if part of the job is engaging and motivating staff, these people just don't have that skill set, whether it's naturally or whether they've just never been, and I hate to use the term, it sounds like a dog park. They haven't been socialized. They haven't really spent time getting to know people, understanding people dynamics, and how to be a strong people leader, not just a functional leader. So when you're talking about the development components to these people, this is where you focus on things like communication skills, so things like DISC training, emotional intelligence, so EQ training, all of those kind of more human skill sets that they need to work on to make them more effective. And lastly, kind of as a manager of these people, your support is going to be is to help them socialize. So that's where, as a manager, sit in a lot of their team meetings, go to their shift startup meetings, whatever the case may be, and really kind of watch them interact with their people and role model some of the better behaviors around kind of socializing, asking people how their weekend was, those sorts of really simple skills that will help boost their likability and make them more effective in that people leadership position. There's another type of supervisor out there, and I'm using that term loosely. These are people who are in more of a people leadership role, but they lack both the likability and the functional skill required to be an effective people leader. I call these people taskmasters. These are people that are your purest micromanagers because they've not had any development opportunities, they've not pursued any on their own or provided any by their organization within their career on how to be a good people leader. So they've been promoted out of their operator role, and they've just never really left that job behind them. So they are oftentimes more of a super operator than a supervisor. They don't have any of the skills required to be a good people leader, and people often don't trust them and don't respect them because they see that they're just making it up day to day as opposed to following a predictable path of being a strong people leader. So when you find these people in your organization, there are a couple things you can do. Obviously, most people watching this video are thinking, well, just get rid of them. But these are people that, in many times, through no faults of their own, have not had any development opportunities, have not had any performance management conversations with their manager to say, listen, you're not doing a very good job, but here's how we're going to help you. So there are some opportunities to give them a shot before you move them out. The first thing, and it sounds completely counterintuitive from a development perspective, is to offer them more of a functional skill development plan, because that's easier to teach. And I know all my PMP designation folks out there are going to freak out, but at a very high level, project management will give these people more structure to their day-to-day roles, and this will help build more respect and trust in their team, which again at that point will start to build up that likability scale. And from a development purely on that likability scale, what you as a manager or a colleague can do with them is spend time kind of socializing them. It sounds like a dog park mentality, but give them opportunities to kind of spend more time in team meetings or in shift startup meetings, those sorts of things, so where they can start to really have better conversations with their people at a group level, so they can start to build up their collective likability as an organization. The last thing that you want to do as a manager also is to give them positive reinforcements every time they do something that is more akin to being a professional people leader in business. So when they do something great, pull them aside, make sure that you really emphasize how important that is for their team and themselves as a people leader. And the more you do that, the more they'll start to kind of notice when they're doing more people leader type activities, not super operator type things. And your organization and your people will be far more successful because of all of these sorts of things. They're out there. Believe it or not, there are unicorns out there. There are these few and far between, unbelievably rare, strong team leaders. People who have the high level of likability and the very strong skill set to back it up at that supervisor level. These are the people that you want in your organization, and this is the end goal for those other three pockets: the super friends, the supervisor term I'm using, and that taskmaster role. If you do all of the skill development aspects that I've described in this video, you can build your people up to be this true team leader role. These are the people that really understand that your business only moves forward because of the effectiveness of the employees within the organization, and they are continually moving these people up within the organization, making them better every single day. Strong project management, performance management. They really get to know their employees. They have that high EQ and social intelligence as well. And that's what you're looking for within your organization, because at that level, then you as a manager can focus on far more purely management tactics. You don't have to supervise the team as well as be the manager of the team. So the goal is to build towards this team leader role. If you have these people, that's great. Celebrate them every single day. But there's a kind of a point where you also have to realize that they are going to start to stagnate themselves. And your role as a leader or as a L&D professional is to identify these team leaders and start to build them from an operational support skill set to a more technical management perspective, because these are the people that are going to backfill your manager jobs one day. And the more you can kind of start to build them in advance of that promotion, the more engaged they're going to be, and the more they're going to build in and start to kind of cultivate that leadership pipeline below them to start to look for that next supervisor so that they can move on to that more management role. The other thing as a manager that you can do is really spend a disproportionate amount of time with these individuals, because they are the ones that you want to show other supervisors this is what it looks like. And the more that other supervisors can see that, the more they will try to emulate that, and the more likely you will be as an organization to have a strong set of supervisor or true team leaders across the board, making sure your organization is running at full potential at all times. So focus on this team leader role, understand how you can get people there, and if you can move your people into this quadrant, your organization is going to thrive. So this is the point in most of my videos where I ask, where are you on the spectrum? In this case, there are actually two. So you can kind of start to plot out your supervisors across these two axes and be objective, involve many people in the conversation to decide, do we have people in these positions operating at the most effective they can be, or do we need to do something to make sure that they can be more effective over time, and ultimately help our employees do their jobs to their best efforts every single day. So 4 different types of supervisor. Like I said, it's a great role, the most important role within an organization if you want to really move things forward. So focus on these people, spend some time making sure that they have what they need to be successful, and your organization will be successful too.